Hello and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Liam Xavier and you join us here at EBAday 2026 in Copenhagen. With me right now is Paul Ruskin, the Director of Business Development at Trace Financial. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Liam. I love you to be here.
Yes, we're talking a little bit about ISO 20022.
Yep.
Now, we've seen the end of this coexistence between the message type format and now this new ISO 20022. Has that been a smooth change, do you think?
It was smoother than I thought it would be. I'm naturally pessimistic. In November, I thought this would be quite challenging for the industry, but I've heard very little stories about anything going wrong. It seemed a very smooth transition. Swift are happy, which is always good. I do think it does mask something underlying that I don't believe everyone is ISO 20022 compliant. I think the contingency option that Swift offered, the in-flight translation, is probably carrying more weight than it should, and which is why when we provide our translation service, it is something that you have to come off of it eventually. I don't believe this in-flight translation can last forever, but sorry, answer your question. Yes, it was very smooth, but I think there was a caveat as well.
So there's a lot to focus on ahead of that November deadline for structured addresses. You spoke a little bit last year about hybrid versions. What should FIs be focusing on priority-wise?
So this November is hybrid address full stop. Yes, the in-flight translation, people will have to eventually get their legacy formats up to speed, legacy systems I should say, but for hybrid addresses, I've actually more worried this November than I was last November, mainly because this November there is no fallback option. If you are sending an unstructured address, that payment will be stopped. There is no in-flight, there is no contingency, and so I believe Swift identified this early, and they have done, as always, as much as they can to help the industry. I don't believe the industry has helped themselves. I think they've left this far too late. Swift provided an open source AI model to help FIs with hybrid addresses or fully structured. It was an offer. It wasn't the full solution. And I think that vendors and FIs have started looking at that as potentially a good solution, starting to use AI. And I have no problem with AI, but at the moment, if you're trying to put this into a November deadline, compliance aspects do raise if you've got an open AI model and you're trying to do a hybrid address. Therefore, I think it is almost coming down to be a manual job. I get asked questions from our company about what we can do for hybrid addresses. And my answer is always, yes, we can provide the logic for this, but by definition, it's an unstructured address. I do not know what that structure is, and if you do not know, then we've got a problem. So maybe again, I'm scandalizing or making this far worse than I think it will be, but I think November is going to be a challenge for a lot of people, and you should be cleaning your data right now to make sure you are ready for the mandatory country, mandatory town or city, get that in, and then you can start looking at fancy AI models to go forward to do your fully structured.
And of course, there's not the only thing. There's plenty going on. There's more in 2027 and regular updates to different clarifications. Yeah. What does this mean for actually going forward and making it a success, to avoid just seeing it as a sort of rushed compliance effort, but actually making it a strategy?
It really does feel like a rushed compliance effort these last few years. And eventually people are going to start asking for ROI on this whole change. I believe this is the foundation for ISO 20022. We eventually got the coexistence period finished. We are now starting to look at the rich data within addresses with this hybrid model. You know, we have a fully structured model. I don't believe that will ever be achieved probably in my lifetime. I think people are going to go to hybrid and stick with hybrid. Some people will go to structured, but I cannot imagine hybrid being taken off the table. So going forward, I believe it's going to be exceptions and investigations next year as well. So there's, again, more translations to be done. If it was me and I was in charge of an FI, I would be getting through November, starting to look at bringing maybe AI into making this fully hybrid, to do this as not a manual job, but an automated, and mainly getting my legacy systems off the old MT format. And that is why I still believe translation services are vital in this industry, to let customers get off their legacy formats to be fully ISO, and then you can start reaping the rewards that we all know is there.
Well, great to have you in the studio, and we'll look forward to the November deadline to see how that changes.
Thanks for having me, Liam.